We lost yet another famous personality from old TV shows. Lynn Hamilton died at the age of 95. She was the heart and soul behind some of the most famous black parts in Hollywood history. From her unforgettable role on Sanford and Son to her quiet power on the Waltons, she had a huge effect. You won't believe how much you don't know about her life, battles, and last years. For people who like old TV shows, the name Lynn Hamilton is very known. It is holy. She was more than just a character actor. She was an important part of culture. Lynn made every part she played feel real and warm, from her heartfelt turn as Donna Harris, Fred Sanford's longtime love interest on Sanford and Son, to her roles in the Waltons' Good Times and 227. But behind that friendly smile and soft voice was a story that not many people knew about. Private heartbreaks, job setbacks, and quiet strength. Now that she has died at the very old age of 95, we still have questions. How did her last days really feel? What made her hide from everyone for so long? Also, what does she leave behind? Not just in Hollywood, but also in the hearts of fans and other stars. We'll look into things in today's deep dive. Lynn went from being poor to becoming a big star on prime time. What shocked her so much that she almost quit acting altogether? In her moving farewell interview, she talked about how Sanford and Son changed her life and how her life ended in a beautiful, bittersweet way. You have no idea what she went through behind the scenes and how her private fights changed the woman we all thought we knew. That's when it gets real and strong. This isn't just an honor, so stay put. As a tribute to her brave, elegant, and totally her own life, she has written a book. Lynn Hamilton wasn't born on a red carpet or in front of cameras on April 25, 1928 in Yazoo City, Mississippi. While she was young, she lived in the segregated South at the end of the Great Depression and grew up in a very religious home that stressed hard work, humility, and quiet persistence. During the Great Migration, her parents moved their family to Chicago when she was a child. They did this because they thought there would be better chances in the North. But Lynn never imagined herself in Hollywood, not even on the busy South Side of Chicago. A lot of black women, especially in the 1940s, were told not to think of becoming actors. All of that changed after just one visit to the Goodman Theater School, which is one of the oldest and most well-known acting schools in the country. Lynn took lessons there, and something clicked almost right away. It felt like home on stage. In a rare interview, she said, "I knew I had to do it. When I put myself in someone else's shoes, I felt alive." Lynn started out in the theater, acting in Chicago productions long before TV had a full foothold. This helped her get used to working in an industry dominated by white people. Even though she was smart and talented, the chances were against her. In the 1950s and early 1960s, Hollywood didn't have much room for African-American actors, especially those who didn't fit the narrow molds that casting directors pushed. Roles for black women were often degrading, one-dimensional, or not there at all, but Lynn wouldn't play stereotypes. She picked honor even if it meant not having to work for a long time. Instead, she was proud of the parts she played on stage that were hard for her and connected her to her roots. She performed everything from Shakespeare to plays written by black people that dealt with issues of social justice. It wasn't easy, though. Some weeks, all I had was a prayer and a meal. She remembered once, half jokingly, but I kept going. After a lot of hard work, she finally got parts on TV, albeit small ones at first, in shows like Gunsmoke and Dragnet, where she quietly made a name for herself with nuanced, emotionally charged performances. Things changed, though, in the early 1970s. The big break, Sanford and Son. Lynn Hamilton got the part that would become her most famous one in 1972. Wendy Harris, Fred Sanford's loving nurse and romantic partner, was played by the famous Red Fox. She changed the game by playing a professional black woman with style, intelligence, and a sweet sense of humor, and people fell in love right away. Lynn was an important part of the story. Fred had a rough beauty that matched her soft side. There was no denying their chemistry. She quickly became a fan favorite, and she was in more than 20 episodes of the show's run. But it wasn't just the crowd that saw it. Lynn Hamilton was now a real person. Now, though, this is where things get interesting. Even though she was becoming more famous, Lynn almost quit Hollywood for good. Why? She didn't expect the pressure, politics, and pain that came with fame. What was going on behind the scenes of Sanford and Son would put her morals, her patience, and her mental health to the test. Every week, people who watched Sanford and Son got to see laughter, lovable chaos, and a rare, funny look into the life of a black family. It was TV magic when Red Fox's raw comedic timing and Lynn Hamilton's soft bass came together. Behind the scenes, things were a lot more complex. There was stress building behind the bright stage lights and laugh tracks. Lynn, who was known for being quiet but strong, was often stuck in the middle of a work storm. Lynn and Red, a complicated link. Red Fox was the star of the show, who made black comedy popular on national TV and changed the way it could look. But Red's showy image didn't go away when the cameras stopped rolling. Many people said he was moody, stubborn, and very protective of his artistic vision. He was also said to be brilliant. Red and Lynn had a lot of respect for each other, but they were said to have had disagreements, especially about where the show should go. On screen, she was the caring nurse, but behind the scenes, she often fought to make sure her role wasn't just a background character or a stereotype. One author said she wasn't just there to respond to Fred. It was important to her that Donna could stand on her own, but directors didn't always like how she tried to make her more interesting. And Red, he didn't want to say no to the people he brought in, but the network wanted him to keep things easy. Some say he admired how classy and useful Lynn was. Some say he saw her quiet refusal as a threat to his authority on the set. Still, Lynn never changed her mind. She didn't want fame if it broke her morals. The fight for recognition in and out of the set. As the show became a huge hit, Red Fox reportedly went to war with NBC over money, power, and the freedom to be creative. During 2 different contract conflicts, he even left the set in the middle of work. Lynn was asked to keep the show together at that time, keeping things stable while writers worked hard to fix plots. She didn't say anything about it. But insiders say she wasn't paid nearly as much as the male actors, even though she was becoming more famous and important to the emotional depth of the show. Someone who used to work there said it was like an old boys club, and Lynn had to fight for everything, including her lines, scenes, and pay. That fight finally wore her down. She got into the business to tell important stories, not to beg for recognition. Because of this, she jumped at the chance to leave Hollywood after Sanford and Son. A quiet end, but not a loss, never made an exciting exit. All books, bad news stories, and angry interviews were not present. That wasn't her style. She instead slipped out of the spotlight with the same quiet grace she always brought to her roles. Of course, it wasn't retirement. Not quite. Lynn made a few guest roles on TV shows like The Waltons, 227, and Roots over the next few years. The next stage, picking parts that showed truth, culture, and depth. She also spent a lot of time on community theater and mentoring, showing young black artists the ropes in an industry that had ignored or mistreated them for a long time. One mentee said, "She taught me that being strong doesn't have to be loud. It only needs to be steady." However, this is what shocks me. Lynn Hamilton never got the credit she earned in Hollywood, even though she was talented and made important contributions to black entertainment. Although she was never nominated for an Emmy or awarded at any of the big awards shows, the roles she played were more memorable than most golden trophies. Lynn Hamilton didn't end up like many stars do after decades of being famous. She didn't run after the cameras or go to all the red carpet events. She didn't write a book or become famous on social media. She gracefully disappeared into a life of peace, privacy, and purpose, choosing to be alone over being in the press and to think over being recognized. Lynn spent the years before she died living in peace in Los Angeles, away from the busy life of the film business. Her neighbors said she was a nice, soft-spoken woman who still had the air of TV royalty about her, but she never acted like it. The kind of woman who would water her plants and wave to kids on their way home from school. One neighbor said, "You'd never guess she helped make black television history." She lived a quiet life of thought. Even though she wasn't in movies as often as she used to be, she stayed involved with the arts by mentoring young actors, giving to cultural foundations, and going to community theater shows. She also volunteered at churches, women's groups, and neighborhood events that aim to empower black people, tell stories, and keep history alive. Lynn wasn't afraid of losing her edge. It had to do with staying put. Her friends say she never whined that Hollywood didn't notice her. In fact, it made her feel free. One close friend said, "She'd say I had my time, now it's theirs." She wasn't in need of praise. People still thought about her. Yes, it did. Fans knew her not only as a character, but also as a person who was strong, professional, and quiet. It was something that black women on TV almost never got to do in the 1970s. The last few days, a quiet farewell on insert known date. Lynn Hamilton died. She was 95 years old. There were no media shows, paparazzi, or shocking news stories. Her family quietly told a few trusted news outlets about her death in a statement. According to people who knew her family, Lynn died peacefully in her sleep with love around her. A family friend said she was ready. She had a full life. There were no lost ends left behind. She only left memories. She asked that there not be an official public memorial. Lynn had asked very clearly that her death not be a show, but rather a time for private remembering and still thinking. The business world still felt the loss. A lot of actors, directors, and fans who had grown up watching her sent their condolences. People who worked with her and knew the business well called her a pioneer, a pillar, and one of the most underrated actors of her time. The cast of The Waltons said in a short but emotional statement that she was a beautiful person who left a mark on every set she was on, a memory that wouldn't go away. Lynn Hamilton's work is just one part of her powerful story. How she left the stage with grace, limits, and peace is another. These days, people often cling to fame fiercely, but she just walked away without a fuss. She wasn't completely gone, though. Many actors today, from Viola Davis to Loretta Devine and Angela Bassett to Sheryl Lee Ralph, remember how she made them feel. Women who say that pioneers like Lynn made it possible for them to play real, complicated, and strong women. Her roles on syndicated shows like Sanford and Son, The Waltons, Roots, and 227 continue to introduce her to new generations every day. Many of these people may never know the fights she fought quietly behind the scenes. People who do will never forget, though. But here's the last surprise. Most surprise. Lynn Hamilton showed us a very important lesson even after she died. You don't have to be the loudest to make the biggest difference. That making legacies isn't about getting big news. They're made with heart. Lynn Hamilton's life didn't end when she died. That's where the conversation really starts in a lot of ways. We know a lot more about her work than what we saw on screen, from the good times to the bad. It shows us the holes in the way Hollywood works. About the unsung heroes who paved the way for progress and the quiet rebels who changed TV not with noise but with their presence, playing more than a supporting role. To be honest, Lynn Hamilton was mostly seen as a supporting character. Her name wasn't always written above the text on the paper. It wasn't like she was getting Emmys or magazine covers. She wasn't shocking, flashy, or famous, but she was very important. In shows like Sanford and Son, her appearance made the story better. In a genre that was often based on cliches, she gave the story depth, the character's life, and warmth. At a time when Hollywood didn't often show black women who were educated, caring, and mentally intelligent, she played one. She didn't have to yell to be understood. Her work spoke for itself, and it said a lot. The two loads, race and gender. Oh, Lynn Hamilton's work also brings out a truth that we can't ignore. It's hard enough to be a woman in Hollywood. Being a black woman, even tougher. She didn't just have trouble getting roles, she had to deal with unequal pay, few scripts, token roles, and constant push to stay in her lane. She kept her pride in herself through it all, though. She quietly pushed for better parts. When things were no longer helpful to her, she stepped away. People learned from her so they wouldn't have to fight as hard as she did. Still, she was forgotten about. A star said she should have had her flowers decades ago. But she had to be her own flower, like a lot of black women in show business. How powerful it is to be represented. Take a look at this. In the 1970s, millions of black families watched every week as Lynn Hamilton played a nurse, a professional woman with her own story and emotional weight. That was a big deal. She showed that black women could be main characters in a story, not just helpers, maids, or jokes. A representation is more than just a face. It's about telling the truth. Lynn brought the truth to every room she went into. And by doing that, she showed other artists what they could do. Scandal, Queen Sugar, Insecure, and Abbott Elementary are just a few of the shows that help make the way clear. Even though she didn't have much screen time, she had a huge impact. The bigger question is why we forget about the people who paved the way. The ease with which Hollywood forgets about people like Lynn Hamilton is very unsettling. There won't be any big tributes, retrospectives, or career achievement awards. There will just be a quiet farewell. Still, she did all the right things. She was smart, skilled, reliable, and had an effect. So why do we wait until someone is dead to treat them with the respect they earned while they were alive? That's the real talk that needs to happen right now. Lynn's death at age 95 is more than just a loss. This is a warning. This is a reminder that Black women in the media have been making bridges for many years, often without getting credit for it. It's time to show them respect while they're still here, which is the right way to honor her. Not only should we mourn Lynn Hamilton's death, but we should also learn from her. Honor the women in your life who make you feel better without expecting praise. Help Black actors tell stories with many layers. Speak out when historical people are being left out of the story. Last but not least, never think that kindness means silence. Lynn Hamilton may not have been heard when she died, but her work and impact are still very much felt. We have more than just a collection of work to show for Lynn Hamilton's amazing life as the credits roll. We have a heritage that is deeply rooted in American television. Lynn didn't just jump into Hollywood. She started out in Mississippi in the south side of Chicago, and she worked her way up to the sound stages of NBC. She changed the rules for Black women who work in TV. She built a legacy that defied the odds without a scandal, a personality that sought the attention, or any kind of compromise. Her role on Sanford and Son was more than just famous. It changed everything. She meant a lot to Fred Sanford. The crowd had hope because of her. She also gave Black Americans something they didn't see enough of at the time, a strong, smart, kind, and deeply human Black woman on TV, a woman of honor in a world full of egos. In a field where fame and ego are common, Lynn decided to be honest. She picked peace. She picked a reason. She didn't care about the news. She wasn't after power. It was important to her to tell stories that mattered while also keeping her honor. What made her stand out was that rare mix of artistry without ego. She led the way not with noise, but by being there. It was revolutionary that she wouldn't put up with rudeness, had the guts to step back when she needed to, and was dedicated to representation. It wasn't because they were loud, but because they were planned. She didn't have to prove she was famous. She just lived like one. Why her story is more important than ever. The entertainment business is still figuring out how to make Black women more visible, valuable, and heard in 2020-25. Lynn's life can serve as a guide. It shows us what it means to fight quietly, but with strength, to make art that lives on beyond the screen, and to be a gracious leader even when no one is looking. We know there are a lot of Lynns out there, which may be why her death hits so close to home. There are women whose legacies have been forgotten, undervalued, or buried in the noise of a society obsessed with fame. Still, it's not too late. We can still honor her. We can still carry her light. Here's what we want from you, the watcher. Leave a comment below if Lynn Hamilton changed your life through her talent, her grace, or just being there. Tell us about your favorite memory, scene, or what her story means to you. Share this video to show everyone how important quiet talent is. Sign up for our channel to see more in-depth looks into the lives of famous people, icons, and people who were forgotten too soon by the mass media. Share this tribute with someone who needs to know more about Lynn Hamilton, not just as an actor, but also as a Black woman of strength, beauty, and excellence.